Hey guys, this is Isaac from Contender Bicycles, and this is Orbea's newest bike, the Orbea Oiz. This is Orbea's dedicated cross-country race bike based around 120 millimeters of travel, front and rear, and it's a pretty lightweight monster. The Oiz itself is a great bike for anybody looking to travel long distances and cover lots of ground fairly fast. It is a dedicated XC race bike, but it suits any sort of XC needs. Orbea says you can use this for XC racing, long marathon days, and they say you can even use it for some light trail days. The Orbea itself, you can even run like a 130 fork on this, according to the Orbea representative I talked to, and with a 130 millimeter fork on this with a 120 rear, it worked pretty awesome as a light trail bike. But the stock version of it will work most ideally as a kind of in long day, cross-country-ish type scenarios. The biggest changes between this Oiz and the previous generation Oiz is going to be the frame's geometry and some slight tweaks to the frame itself. This frame has gotten quite a bit longer and slacker, now boasting a 67-degree head angle and a 450 millimeter reach in a size medium. That means that this bike is now more on par with its current cross-country compatriots like the Scott Spark RC, the Santa Cruz Blur, Canada Scalpel, or anything along those lines. It has gotten longer and slacker to fit more modern, demanding XCO courses. In this frame itself, you will also see that in this rear triangle, the seat stays and the chain stays have gotten a little bit thicker. The seat stays and chain stays have gotten thicker to make the rear triangle a lot stiffer. So when you're out of the saddle and sprinting and putting that power out, it means that the rear triangle is going to deliver more of that power to the rear wheel and make you accelerate faster. It also means that when you're descending, the wheel is going to track more predictably because the rear of the frame is flexing a lot less. The kind of beauty of that rear triangle getting a little bit thicker and also lengthening and elongating the frame, though, is that they actually still managed to keep the same frame weight. It is a claimed 1,740 grams in a size medium, which is insanely lightweight for those geometry numbers and thickening the frame. So really great on Orbea for that. The other difference in the frame we have seen is in the linkage. The linkage now receives oversized bearings to make the linkage a little bit more serviceable and also makes it more reliable. Oversized bearings spread the load of the force on the bike even more, so it prevents less side-to-side play and up and down play in the rear end, just steps going further to perfect the Oiz. In the past, the previous generation of the Oiz had two versions. There was the standard Oiz and the Oiz TR. The standard Oiz had 100 millimeters of travel, front and rear, and the Oiz TR had 120. It was the same frame, but boosted to 120 millimeters of travel. That was fairly common at the time. Lots of companies like to do that, where they have a specified cross-country bike that's 100 millimeters of travel, and then they would have another version that was called a TR or a trail model or whatever they called it that was boosted to 120. While this was great because as courses are getting more technical, that extra bit of travel was welcome, it kind of messed with the geometry of the bike. On a traditional cross-country bike that you had that's 100 millimeters of travel that you boost to 120, it raises up your bottom bracket and it shortens your reach because it raises up the front end of the bike, which kind of messes with the geometry. So even though having more suspension travel in like a marathon setting is a benefit because you can run the top of your travel a little bit softer, which means that you're more comfortable over long periods of time and reduces fatigue on the rider, the downcrease in geometry from the bottom bracket being lifted and the reach being shortened wasn't super worth it to a lot of riders. The Oiz of this year has really fixed that problem because Orbea designed this bike to be 120 millimeters of travel from the start. So there is no longer an Oiz and Oiz TR. It's just the Oiz and it's 120 millimeters of travel. Because they designed it from 120 millimeters of travel from the beginning, they were able to reduce the fact that the bottom bracket would raise and the reach would raise if you boosted a normal 100 mils to 120. So it retains fantastic geometry while having that extra bit of suspension that you could run a little bit more plush off the top of its travel to reduce fatigue, which makes this bike perfect for super long days, and it means it's extremely fast as a marathon race bike or anything along those lines. This frame is pretty awesome for that reason. The other thing you will see on this frame that's new is that the cables are now internally routed through the headset bearings, which provide a super clean look. If you're running, let's say, SRAM axis and maybe no dropper post, you would have fairly almost no visible cables, which is really awesome. It's super clean looking. A lot of companies who like to do this cable through the headset thing will like to use plastic spacers that you can split apart to take the cables and rise the stem in and out, and then you can clip them back together. While that works, plastic spacers aren't perfect. They're injection molded and sometimes they rub and they creak if things get dusty. And the beauty of the Oiz and what Orbea has done here is they actually made them out of metal, which might be a little bit heavier than some of their competitors, but it means it's gonna be a little bit more reliable. It's much nicely refined. It's not gonna creak as much if you get a bike really, really dusty, and it still looks really, really good. Again, with that headset, inside this headset, they also have something they call the spin block, which actually prevents the bars from spinning too far and smacking that beautiful top tube that you have on your Oiz. It prevents you from cracking your top tube or scratching your paint job. So it prevents your bars from turning super far. I can show you right here. If you lift the front of the bike, it has a stopping point right there, and it's same thing on the other side. Right there, I can't push any farther, and it prevents you from hitting your top tube, which is awesome on a bike like this because with a really aggressive cockpit setup, which a lot of cross-country riders do like to ride, it prevents you from smacking that top tube if you happen to crash. The other thing you might see on this bike is that the OC, which is Orbea's in-house component brand, has started making more componentry for this bike. It now runs OC carbon bars and an OC specific stem, which looks super clean because it's designed to fit on this bike and it matches the lines of the bike, so it looks really, really awesome. But I think one of the biggest things on the new Orbea, which is really, really awesome, are the wheels. Orbea has now launched an in-house wheel company called Uquo, and Uquo makes their in-house carbon wheels with a lifetime warranty, great customer service, and they're fairly lightweight. They all run DT Swiss hubs, which means they're extremely reliable, which means that Orbea is thinking about their customers and know that the customers want something that's reliable, that's gonna be easy to find parts for, and something that you can bring into any bike shop and say, hey, I need a part for this hub, and a bike shop would have it, which is really, really awesome for these wheels. Let's say you're going to a race in a desert and you broke something and you really needed a part in your wheel before your next race. Because they use DT Swiss hubs, you could probably be able to find that part, which is really awesome. The new Uquo wheels have 3 different versions on them. The bottom's one with DT Swiss 370s, they go to DT Swiss 350s, and they also have one with DT Swiss 240s, which are the lightest version of the wheels. These wheels are really fantastic. They have a 30mm internal width, and they are designed for the Oiz in specific. One of the things that really has an allure for Orbea for a lot of people is their price point. For the amount of componentry you're getting and the excellent parts like Fox Factory suspension, carbon wheels, carbon bar, great Shimano brakes and drivetrain, their price points are extremely competitive. For most major bike brands out there right now, you're not going to find a bike with much better pricing than this for the same amount of componentry, which is why a lot of people really, really love these bikes. They're an excellent bang for your buck, and you're getting an extremely quality bike for that money you're spending. If you ever want to come test ride one of these bikes or ever come look at one, we are located in Salt Lake City at 989 East, 900 South. And if you have any questions about the Orbea, feel free to call in. We're always happy to ask questions. And if you like this video, feel free to leave a comment, like, and subscribe. Thank you.